Welcome back then, ladies and gentlemen. We are almost ready to go with our third and final game of the day. FC Lahti Menace versus Team Nemesis, and one of these two teams is going home right here, right now. It's a scary thought if you're sitting on that stage.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier, should I say, and how brutal this format is with only 4 teams total. It means one team literally just go home after 2 games, as double elimination does, but in such a small...
It's better than 1 game in a single elimination.
But it's such a small bracket, it comes around so quickly, and they won't even get to play tomorrow. And also they get a big fat 0 out of a prize pool as well.
But hey, ultimately that's not what a lot of these teams are here for. The prize money is a nice addition, but winning is what it's all about. And now, okay, if you're going home with $0, you're also not winning, but you're getting experience, you're getting practice, you're learning things about yourself that you may not have got if you weren't playing on the stage. So we'll see if they get it. Team Nemesis, there we are, coming up onto the stage right now. I want to talk about them a little bit first, because they did some funky things in our pick and bans and in our games earlier on when they played against Ents. So they had some moments. These maps now, they started off going completely different to what we saw before, and they picked King's Row as our first map of this this final game.
Yeah, strange one. They started really well against Ents and then just went off a cliff on Eichenwald and never really properly recovered. And we touched on it all the time. I mean, maybe we were a little bit harsh in terms of they need to get off the tank composition, but the key for them is they either fix their ultimate economy management and their engagements with those tanks, or they just double down and go back to dive.
Now, with that King's Row selection, do you think they've doubled down, or are they going to do something different? Is King's Row something that lends itself to that tank composition that they were running so fondly?
It does on second and third stage, not so much first stage. It's a bit easier to get around on first stage, so I feel like they're not straying away from it massively.
So we'll see if they can get through that first stage, which ultimately was their issue with Eichenwald, is that they couldn't get through that first stage, so maybe a bit of a gamble in their part. As far as the rest of the maps go, we go obviously King's Row first, Nepal is second, and Lijiang Tower is third again, so we're still seeing both those control maps, nothing crazy there. If we get far enough, Route 66 is once again the 4th map, and Hollywood is once again the 5th map, so nothing too crazy ultimately in the changes, just a slight reordering of the first 3, and Eichenwald is out for King's Row.
Yeah, again, very control heavy from both of these teams, and to be fair, in both of their first games against Gigantti and Ents respectively, those were the maps they did better on. So no surprise that they both feel a little bit more comfortable on that, and that we're going to see them again here in this series. And with them being in the first 3 maps, they'll be so decisive in dictating who takes this one.
Exactly. Now, what I want to see from Nemesis, as you said, they're going to stick or we suspect they're going to stick with this very tank-heavy comp that didn't do so well for them against Ents, but it seems to be what they want to play no matter what. Looking at Lahti Menace, they had a much more flexible composition in their previous rounds. Desperado is the one that stood out to me, especially constantly twitching back and forth between the likes of Diva and a couple of times McCree, but also Soldier a lot. Heroes, sorry, that Ents didn't really push against Nemesis, didn't really play against that. Now, are Lahti Menace going to be able to play against the solid very tank comp, or are their hero pools actually a bit of a negative?
I think we're going to see, I think it's quite a delicate situation. I think, like you said, Lahti Menace, that will encourage Nemesis to pull out the same. So I think as long as somebody takes that first step, I think both teams will happily play in that dive and probably feel more comfortable and probably play at a higher level because of that great level of comfort. And
what you also said a lot during the Nemesis games, what you wanted to see is you want to see Olu on Genji. That's his character, that's what he's known for and he's great at, but we only ever saw him really playing Zarya in the last game. He wasn't allowed to explode onto that Genji. Yeah, we want to see that happen.
If Olu goes home without playing Genji at this LAN, it's going to be a travesty.
Okay, so we'll see whether they let him do that. The ready calls are coming out from each team, so slowly but surely we should be into the game. As I said, it's going to be King's Row first. You mentioned that dive is kind of key to getting that first point captured, and it's vanished on my screen, but if memory serves, it is going to be an attack set up first for Team Nemesis, so Olu's Genji may well be something that's needed.
Yeah, it's early on they're still assembling their heroes, but again, it looks like Nemesis are going to lean towards those tank-heavy compositions again. From a defensive point of view on King's Row, obviously we talked about dive can be quite effective on first point when you transition into your tanks. So there's a bit of a decision you have to make, whether as the defenders, whether you run a more dive-centric composition for that first point, then potentially need to switch if you don't full hold it, or whether you go on the tank composition, except that you're probably not going to hold first, but then you have a stronger composition and stronger ult economy going into the second and third point.
Yeah, so as you say, they are still selecting their few heroes, but they're coming on through now then. So yeah, as our Team Nemesis are actually on defense, they're making their way towards the first point, and as you said, they're sticking to their tanks. Olu is on Zarya. As for our attacking lineup, well, we'll give them a little bit longer to settle in. They've got a bit more time to switch around with their heroes as they please. They got some interesting ones already playing at the moment. We'll see if they stick to it. As for that comp that is there for our defensive team, for Nemesis, it is everything we've seen them play earlier on. It is the Reinhardt, Zarya, D.Va and Roadhog combination.
Yeah.
In theory, it should be very static. It will stick very still and it's hard to shove because it's 4 tanks. But they weren't great at keeping those tanks alive the last time we saw them use it.
The key here is he's key to this and he's a key source of damage output. If he needs to do better if they're going to keep running these tanks.
All right, so out they come then. They're on the right side. Nemesis are leading the way. They did switch themselves up a little bit. And they're actually in an identical composition as they push out of the gate. Do start to clash around the statue. Wants a bit of damage exchange either way. Virtus is low, but he's getting himself healed back up quickly before getting chunked down and getting the first kill and cover out. So you mentioned how important he is, and he's gone. Virtus though very, very, very low, but will survive as Desperado's mech will fall. They do finally get a kill onto Reinhardt, but it's at the expense of their own Moira, so Nemesis losing one in exchange. Moira all coming out from Lahti Menace. They continue to try and push on forward. And it does look like they're succeeding, pushing Nemesis back through the choke point, getting closer to the capture point itself. Getting that tick up towards the first third, but can't quite push it over the edge yet. We do see a big ult coming out in the weird direction, but there comes the Graviton, and it is pulling them all into the wall from both sides. More kills, though, heading over in Nemesis' favor as Lahti Menace are getting cut apart. 4 players dead. D.Va out of her mech, trying to stay on the point as long as she can, but she will fall down. A good hook brings her in. And just toying with her now. Just letting her play around and then picking her off as late as possible, which of course delays her team's push getting back into the game.
Yeah, Kuhia in that fight built up 2 Earth Shatters in the time Zeppeli picked up 1. Only landed a good one to save Carvarausku after they lost him early after he got the worst of a Roadhog duel. So big plays from Kuhia so far. He's playing really aggressively and a nice combination of ultimates, but they're at an ultimate disadvantage here. As
Lahti Menace then having their 3 ults, they get around the back. Lucio Walt goes off first. Here comes the Roadhog God doing what he can to try and beast his way through the enemy team. Carvarowski's the first to fall, but Kuhia will fall afterwards. They do get those 2 out of Team Nemesis, but the ults are still there for Desperado. He'll pull one in, gets a new mech out, it's going to go off. What kind of damage is it going to do? Not a whole lot. Takes down Ice, but they are getting the better side of this. Nemesis down with 4 players dead, and it is going to be an objective capture here for Lahti Menace.
Yeah, ultimate advantage push comes out trumps. Took him 2 minutes to cap this first point, not the worst, not the best, and they'll start working their way forward here. And stage 2 in general can be quite snowbally, so the defenders here are going to be very, very pleased that they have the Graviton, the Sound Barrier, the Earth Shadow, the whole org, everything at their disposal, and they're just going to stuff them back out in this door.
All right, let's see how it goes. We see a nice charge coming from Olu here up to 80. It's going to continue the pressure on through. As you said, he's got that Graviton, which could go right in the gap. The ult does come out from Reinhardt, but he will fall down quickly afterwards. His team hasn't done a great job of capitalizing on it because the Lucio ult went out and buffed everyone up with that Sound Barrier, and it does keep a lot of health on Nemesis' favor. Olu still has his ultimate, but they can keep it safe because they're pushing Lahti Menace back even without the use of it. They're continuing to keep their pressure up, pushing them right back in towards their spawn. Reinhardt going to town with his hammer, and Pepper get his ult on charge too if he's needed soon.
Yeah, they are quite literally at the spawn door here, and they use that ultimate advantage. I said before the game, Carvarausku needs to step up, and he's got early hooks in a couple of these fights already so far, so he's doing better. Kuhia has got a 2nd massive Earth Shatter in the very early stage of this first map, and they keep them on the back foot here. But
Olu flank behind and gets a huge Graviton off, pulls all of them in. First one to fall is Lucio. It's going to quickly be followed by two more as Moira and Zarya go down. Zarya still has her own as well. Roadhog will fall. There goes Reinhardt. It's a monstrous fight. Desperado was knocked out of a mech and finished off later. And it's another big hold for Nemesis, but they did use a lot of ultimates for that.
Yeah.
And they lost their Reinhardt.
Yeah, big swing now in the ultimate economy, and this should be finally the chance that Lahti Menace need to start moving it forward. And you can see instantly Menace, Team Nemesis even, sorry, are starting to give them space. Back up, waiting for that Reinhardt to be back before they engage. And it looks like they want to get aggressive here, Lahti Menace.
Lahti Menace, and they may be right to do so with the ultimate advantage that they have. They come on in, we do get a big Earth Shatter off that takes out the Roadhog of Lahti Menace, but they've still got a lot of ultimates to play with. Can they push them through? Desperado gets demexed. They've killed off the enemy Reinhardt and the enemy Moira, so Nemesis are actually down to the player disadvantage. They return it by taking out the Reinhardt on Lahti Menace's side, but he didn't have his ult. Roadhog and Lucio still do. They're falling back though as they want more of their team alive. Lucio will fall. Desperado goes down as well. And, well, despite having the ult advantage, Lahti Menace seem to come out on the back foot. And now the ultimates for Nemesis are going to be up for the next fight.
Yeah, probably going to see a whole lot of ultimates in both of these. Ollie's going to be the key one with that Graviton, trying to combine it with probably the whole hog and perhaps Coalescence. And you can see already, look how aggressive they're being on this defense here. Yeah,
they're pushing forward again. Graviton looking for an opportunity, waiting for them to clump up. There he goes, pulls them all in. The Reinhardt shield goes up. Roadhog is killed off quickly. They still get the Lucio and the Reinhardt kill though. There's the big ultimate, in fact, follows it up as well from Kui. He has Reinhardt. He picks up a lot of people with it, despite the hook coming out. Virtus will fall.
He's just nailing shatter after shatter after shatter here, and there's nothing they can do. Like, particularly in this stage, there's nowhere to go if you have a Team Graviton. There's really limited place your tanks can actually do to spread out in, and it's been so effective. And we are going to see a swap now. Virtus going over to the Junkrat, Desperado onto the Tracer.
This could be big for this very small place as well. The Junkrat damage is huge in such a small encountered area. You do see the ult coming up from Lucio here on Nemesis. He can use this to keep people up. Moira's already fallen. He needs to put that sound barrier down at the right time if he wants to keep his team in this. Lahti Menace have lost their Lucio and their Reinhardt, but the revive is coming through. Lucio will come back forward soon enough. Desperado being kept off at the backside of the fight. Virtus is low and will be picked off here by a good push forward from Olu. Team Nemesis is doing a great job of holding on here, keeping this payload in just inside that initial start point.
They're out of time as well. They need to make this fight here, Lahti Menace.
Yeah, 15 seconds to go. Lahti Menace got everyone up coming forward, but their ultimates are only going to be there for Zarya and Moira. Not a terrible combo, especially if they can get the Tracer ult stuck in the middle of it all, but there's a lot of ults up for Team Nemesis too. 5 seconds on the clock and here it goes. Graviton's going out across the board. There's the Tracer ult going inside it. It does get a good couple of kills. Desperado picking up 4 in total, but the overtime ticking is there. They've got to stay on this point. Lahti Menace have got a full team wipe here onto Team Nemesis, which is going to feel good. But there's 3 ultimates still left up for Nemesis. They've got to get this forward to the next checkpoint before the overtime is punished, pushed back.
They will get a bit of extra space because a lot of those kills came through once it was an overtime, so slower respawns here for the defenders as they try and come back, but they'll still be there with plenty of time to take a final fight, and it's a massive ultimate disadvantage. It needs to be something special here from Lahti Menace, Pankey.
They're going to get there before they hit the checkpoint. Here comes the Riptire coming out one side, the ult's going off from Lucio. He's trying to wait for it to time down, goes around the back. It's going to be spotted by the Moira ult, but it won't quite be picked up. He goes boom, he takes out 2. He also picks up 1 as the Reinhardt will fall thanks to Zarya. Kawaruski's going to get the 1 return onto Moira, but Team Nemesis are actually on the back foot despite their ultimate advantage. 4 and 5 people dead, 6 people dead. Nemesis continue to push now with more time.
That's huge. Not only do they clutch out in that fight they needed to win with that Riptire from Virtus, who made that switch onto Junkrat earlier, they also all the ultimates were used by the Nemesis as well, so the ultimate economy is now against them as well.
Yeah, only 1 minute back up for Desperado and for Lucio's Daniel. They're going to continue to push forward. A switch to Junkrat here for the defensive team now. Kawaruska's Roadhog not happy with that. The push is going to continue to come forward. The ult charge is coming out now for Zarya on Lahti Menace again as well. He's got another ult going through. He's got a big group of people, but Lahti Menace have lost 2 this time. Virtus filled out before he got another Riptire up. He also lost their Roadhog and their Lucio, but Lucio's still got his ultimate. If he can get back in time with 43 seconds still to go, they've got a good number of ultimates here. Desperado falls off the edge, and that's going to slow down Lahti Menace even more. Maybe Nemesis have got a bit of respite here.
Yeah, late Coalescence from Farmers as well is going to hurt them, but They do have that Graviton, and these Gravitons have kind of cycled back and forth. They've never really been equal. It's always been one's got it, one's not, and they keep trading. So absolutely keen that they get good follow-up on Ollie's Graviton here, and there is a Riptide nearly to go with it.
Kohu, he's got his round smash 2. There's the Graviton going in, picks up 3. The Riptide's coming on. He does get finished off actually without doing any damage. Olu getting that kill, and now here comes the Riptide from Team Nemesis, looking for their opportunity, but it will die without doing much. Reinhardt has died for Lahti Menace, and that's their big front tank line, and they lose 2 more quickly afterwards. Desperado takes out the return Reinhardt for Nemesis, but do they have enough people left alive afterwards? Doesn't look like it. Desperado will fall, Farmus goes down, the overtime's going to take over, and Lahti Menace can't quite pull it out of the bag, but got so close in what really they shouldn't have had a chance to do anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange situation. It feels like a good result because obviously they clutched it out, and it's much better than the result that was on the cards previously, but yeah. In the grand scheme of things, now the adrenaline's gone, you have that moment to refocus. King's Row is one of the most offensively favoured maps. It's where we see the fastest times, probably out of any of the payload maps or hybrid maps, I'd say. And not completing it, only getting it around the first
37 meters from the finish.
So a lot of this is going to be on that first hold.
Yeah.
They need to buy at least a couple of minutes there, and they need to be able to stall out that second stage. Because as I said before, that second stage can be very snow. They're then stuck with an impossible task, 37 meters, and if there's still like 3 or 4 minutes on the clock, you can't favour their chances.
So let's see how that shapes up then. It's a tough ask. It's a big ask. But they may just have what it takes. 37.10 meters. Let's see then. As they do begin to move forward for their defense, they are back on almost their favorite tank comps. But you called it earlier on. You asked and potentially saw her in play, especially from the Overwatch League recently. And we do have an Anna picked up here now by our defending team.
Yeah, triple support, triple tank coming out here for Lahti Menace. It's been a while since we've seen this.
Yep.
But as we said before, now Anna, absolutely key. Now anti-heal will open up the space. Carvarowska was also, he was thinking about Widow, now potentially going with Hanzo. Be interesting to see if he sticks with it or just goes for the Sonic Arrow for the visibility. And we'll see this opening shot from him here.
Sonic Arrow goes out, quick scatter to follow it up, then he drops down.
Swap.
And will swap to Roadhog to make his way forward. So quickly, deeply goes through Kohu and he gets around behind the back, cutting turn off on the escape. 3 tank, 3 supports for Lahti Menace is staying very healthy on the spot at the moment. A lot of damage going out onto the Nemesis Reinhardt. He's getting very, very low. They won't want to pick him off. They do.
Yeah, they use the Bionade defensively instead and going to keep everyone healthy, but they win that first fight, and this is huge for the defenders because they're going to get so close to so many of these ultimates. You see Earthshatter online, Coalescence online, Graviton nearly online, that's the key one. There are not a mile away either, Team Nemesis, but they're actually going to try and chase out these stagger kills, and they probably should have just died quicker. Hepper going to die really late in that one, and that's a shame to see. That's going to slow them down a bit here.
Yeah, losing them a lot of time now. Then as Hepper has to go through the revive and the respawn. They do have Lahti Menace now sat back on the spot. First Shatter is up for Zalepi's Reinhardt. Desperado's got his Coalesce Moira as well, and the Graviton ball is almost there from their big one. Oh, Nemesis is getting clumped up. Sorry, Lahti Menace getting clumped up and picked off. 3 dead players after a big Graviton ball. Pulls them all in. The rest of them are low and lacking support now. The tanks were the only ones left up. They're not going to get back here in time to defend it. This will be 0.1 captured for Nemesis. We're going to move on to the payload section. Now, as you said, this is where it could get very snowbally. Have they bought themselves enough time on that first hold? I don't feel like they did.
It's not the worst. I mean, it was 1.5 minutes, so it's definitely not what they would have wanted by any stretch. But the problem is now, they've all swapped heroes, so they've reset their ultimate economy, so now they've opened themselves up for this snowball. But There's almost got his sound barrier, and if they make it successful push with this sound barrier, and we have Coalescence as well here, then it's just going to be a complete roll for Nemesis, and they're going to get loads of ground. Well,
let's see how it goes. A lot more damage coming out for Lahti Menace because of these hero swaps, but as you say, if the ultimates aren't there, here we go. The ult's up for Lucio, the ult's up for Moira. When they want to use it, here's the chance. There's the ult going off for Lucio. The push comes out for Team Nemesis. They get on first. Reinhardt's very low. Can they pick him up early on? They haven't had a chance to yet, but Zarya's around the back, and they get her instead. As her ult was not in play, just came off when she died. Reinhardt falls, Lucio dies, Lahti Menace. Yes, their damage is still up, but now they're all open and exposed. Down goes Junkrat, down goes Moira and Tracer, and it's a full team wipe. Lahti Menace on the backside of this snowball now have to defend very hard for 3 minutes and 50 seconds, back by the second point.
Saving grace of that fight, Virtus, Desperado and Farmers got back their ultimate, so they equaled out the ultimate economy, because they at least did a lot of damage while losing that fight. But still, 3.5 minutes on the clock. They might get some extra time if we go into this final
Big
fight.
first shatter hits 4, comes around the side, picks off Desperado quickly before she can use her ultimate. They've also got the Zarya down. She got her Graviton ball out, but there's no damage left to really follow it up. They've taken out Reinhardt as well. Lahti Menace are continuing on the back foot. 5 people dead. Desperado comes back up. So does Zarya. Versus the only man that actually survived that fight. But Nemesis are keeping their push up, and they still have so many ultimates.
They still have a Graviton. It's absolutely crucial. I mean, I know Lahti Menace still have ultimates here, but it's 4.5 minutes left on the clock, Tanky.
They do not have to get very far. Here comes the Riptide from Virtus. He's looking for an opportunity to come around the back. He hasn't got much of a place to move with. They've fallen back nicely. Goes over the top. Does take down Olu. Olu's Graviton ball now not going to be a thing. But Nemesis have 4 minutes and 20 seconds. They can afford to drop back, wait for Olu to respawn, and come back in again.
This is a very delicate situation now for Lahti Menace, who don't have a huge amount of ultimates themselves. They have to be careful from Team Nemesis.
Here's the push coming forward, then Olu gets his Graviton ball in, he picks up 3, the ult comes up from the Lahti Menace Lucio to try and keep them healthy. Then Reinhardt is again getting very, very low in the front, but this time he survived. The kills are coming out, and Nemesis actually lost a couple. Junkrat falls down, Olu falls down, Lahti Menace are holding for now, but what are they going to cost for it? They picked off 3 kills total and are going to push through, try and chase out the Diva as well. Take out her neck and finish her off afterwards, but what did it cost them? They used a lot of ultimates. They still have their Lucio up, but no one else really has them up. They might get Reinhardt's up in the next fight if they're lucky, but Lahti Menace don't have many to play with either.
Yeah, huge from Desperado in that last fight, getting behind, picking off one, then landing the pulse bomb. Really helped the team come through now, but now they're at a sound barrier disadvantage, but they will have the Riptide and the Coalescence. So still 3 minutes and 10 seconds left, and they can't afford to lose a fight here.
No, it's a long time to hold this where it is. And the push comes forward. Team Nemesis sending him in. Coalesce goes out to keep the healing up, keep them as healthy as they can. Nemesis staying at the back as deep as they possibly can. Riptide comes out and they fell back because of it. He's going to dance around the backside, goes off, doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but Desperado's picked off 2. Lucio picked off the other Lucio, and Team Nemesis are losing players left, right, and center. This is good for Lahti Menace. They're keeping their hold up now, just deep inside the tunnel.
Yeah, Desperado again getting so much work done on that flank, and we see a rather early Coalescence come out from Pepper here. He's trying to push forward with it.
An interesting play. Desperado did get some good kills while they were distracted, and gets a couple more thanks to a good Graviton ball. The Riptide Tracer combo seems to be doing very well for Team Lahti Menace here. They are trying to push back Nemesis, and it's continuing to work. Olu's going to have Graviton ball up again any second now.
Yeah, they didn't use anything in that fight, so no. Even though it's looking good for Lahti Menace, they're doing what they need to do, but it seems like sooner... Oh wow, cute Shatter!
Shatter comes around from behind, Kavaruzka's down already, the charge is going to push deeper in, Kuhiyo's down, Dilepi's out as well. The Reinhardt's down for Lahti Menace very early on, but Team Nemesis lost 2 in trying to make it happen, and they are important people as well. Kuhiyo's down without using his Shatter. Desperado's low, but getting healed back up. They do have a nice opportunity, but Nemesis don't quite have enough people up. They have pushed Lahti Menace back a little way. Can they just edge this payload a little way forward? Give a couple of kills. Kavaruzka's getting a couple. Nemesis are doing this. They're picking up the important kills now, and they're keeping the push on forward. Desperately, Lahti Menace trying to stay close to that payload, but it's going on, and they're diving in one by one now, throwing their lives away, and it won't be enough.
Yeah, it was a good try. Danny goes down without getting a chance to use the sound barrier right at the end, and that was their final lifeline to try and hold on to now and here, Lahti Menace. And they certainly made it a game, this guy in particular. If we can give a play of the game up, there we go. Desperado did huge work on that third stage, picking off kills, landing the pulse bombs with the Graviton combos, and he was a huge reason why we were able to stall it for so long. And it must be so frustrating because there were so many big clutch plays. Great play from Desperado at the end. Nice little sneaky spot from Zeppeli to get that big shatter on to buy him fight for 1 ultimate. So many nice little plays at the end. But they made such a mess of the first 2 stages, It didn't matter that they had all those nice nice plays at the end because the time bank just was never ending effectively.
Yeah, it took them too long to get into that groove that they had already given up too much. So not a good state for them to be in. It means we're going to move on to Nepal next. And, well, Team Nemesis is going to be happy with their start, especially because Nepal, as we've seen, is a map which both of these two teams have performed kind of well on against their opponents in the previous rounds. So now to come and butt heads in what is ultimately a very different fashion to how Kings Row plays, with that one game advantage, is going to feel good.
You have to be wondering as well, that success Menace had with Desperado towards the end, is that going to push them towards using him more on Tracer?
Yeah.
And I hope so. I think, in all honesty, I think both teams would play at a higher level if they weren't so tank-focused.
Look at their faces on screen too right now. Like, compared to how we saw them straight against ENCE, like, there's smiles again now. They're talking. They're joking back and forth. Like, it's clearly a new team in the way of morale works. They aren't as broken. They aren't as down. And that makes a big difference when it comes to playing these kind of games. Just talking to each other and keeping the conversation going really helps the game flow.
Yeah, I think certainly as well. Like, when you look back at that first game, they were both underdogs. There was sort of no way of getting away from that fact. And this is the game that it is pretty much 50-50. Both teams will very much feel they can win this game.
Yeah, so we'll see which way it goes as both teams are readying up in the lobby as they get themselves ready for Nepal. Now, depending on where we end up, both of these teams, oh no, I said that wrong. We've seen Menace play some slightly different compositions, slightly different heroes into the different points. Nemesis have stuck true to their tank combos. Now, they switched it up a little bit there on Kings Row, bringing that Ana in like you asked for, so to speak, but it didn't make the biggest of impacts for them. It got to the point.
Yeah,
it made it work.
It was a weird one. They had the Ana, and then the Bionade, which is the key tool to set up this play, was used defensively instead of offensively.
Exactly.
So it was
it was the idea was there, but not quite. Yet it still sort of worked out.
Yeah, it was.
But
wasn't what they were
Menace,
looking for, but still.
Yeah, Menace are the ones we're looking at to really switch things up a little bit. You say Desperado now perhaps on Tracer again.
Virtus on Pharah.
Virtus on Pharah, that's where I'm looking at as well. So depending on where they kick it off as to what they're going to play straight out of the gate could help or negatively impact the momentum that goes one way or the other here as we start Nepal. So I'm intrigued to see how that shapes, where that shapes, and what that'll do to the game, because we've seen that Nemesis are clearly a morale/momentum-based team. As I say, yes, it's tough to play against the likes of ENCE and Gigantti, but you should go into those games knowing it's going to be a tough game. These are great players. We are the underdogs here. To see them that broken, despite how well the game, their early rounds against ENCE went, they did have that early win. They did hold them firm. They were close, yet they were still so broken after it. It shows an emotional team to me.
Yeah, I think with both of the teams to a certain degree, we saw that once they had the point, they were fairly comfortable, but it's the retakes are really where these maps are won and lost. And we saw both of them struggle with it against ENCE and Gigantti, respectively.
And I feel, especially after watching the Kings Row there, Nemesis, if they stick to their compositions, the tanks that they like to, they're going to struggle a little bit more than Menace showing that flexibility to bring Desperado's Tracer out, to have Virtus on the Pharah instead of just going with the Junkrat damage, which is what we've seen from Cavariscu, who still hasn't really made a big impact with his Junkrat. We saw a couple of moments, but no real big rip tires, not a lot of damage coming through. He'd still die very quickly once Kuhiya died. Need to see a little bit more on the damage from him. Yeah,
he's much more of a sort of mid to long range hit scan player, and he just finds himself stuck on Junkrat, given as is the meta, and it's kind of unfortunate because he's better at that role and starts straying away, particularly on control. We might see a lot more Winston D.Va, more traditional dive centric compositions. That will at least open the door for the possibility of Nemesis not running 4 tanks, which would be nice.
Now, the other thing we got to note, of course, this is Nepal, which is control point, and following it straight after is Lijian Tower as another control point. So, depending on, again, how the way Nepal falls, it could literally be a quick 2-map win for whoever starts to snowball along here, depending on how things shape up. Now, that, of course, is looking great for one squad who's 1-0 up and is looking to quickly rat out the game, but it could also very heavily swing back momentum of the entire series.
Yeah, it makes it quite volatile. Say, for example, Lahti Menace win both control maps, 2-0. You go from 1-0 up to 2-0 down in... or 2-1 down.
2-1 down. It's a painful, quick way to go down. And as you said, Nemesis are a very emotional team, so it seems that if they were to go 2-1 down quickly like that, they may not recover. As it is, though, starting in on Nepal, we have a very big, open, sky-heavy map to kick off our first control point. Now, of course, they're still switching around their heroes at the moment, but this is an opportunity for Virtus to bring out, potentially, his Pharah. It's also an opportunity for Olu to bring out his Genji, but it's still not happening.
Yeah, right now we do have Lahti Menace actually idling on full dive, so Genji, Tracer, Winston, D.Va, Zen and Lucio. The key here is obviously it's much more safe to run the tanks. You have a much more room for error because you've just got more health pool, more healing, you're all together. Whereas the dive from Lahti Menace has to be precise, it has to be particular, and they have to try and catch out Vavev and Hepa from the Nemesis.
Looks like he's sticking with that Genji, so Virtus and Desperado going deep in. The Winston there too, so the dive coming out from Lahti Menace, as you say, is going to stick. Now, Nemesis heading around one side with their tank-heavy composition once again. They are on the point already. They got themselves tucked on inside. If the Pharah was in play, they were ready for it. But they're now pinned in a corner from an onslaught coming their way. Winston's shield goes up, and he's getting low. Kuhiha, though, is incredibly pain right now. In incredible pain as he's getting lower and lower on the point. They do pick off that Reinhardt. Yato, Winston, and now Lucio as well. D.Va's about to get demexed. It should be quickly finished off afterwards as well. Nemesis are in a great spot. No real ult used. There was a coalesce from Hepa, but that's it. And now Lucio's going to have his for the next fight. Ice may just about get his back up too, but Lahti Menace on the back foot.
Yeah, Zeppeli went a little bit early there. He sort of surrounded them, which is exactly what you should do as the dive composition, but then he just went a little bit before everybody else. But they're coming into this high ground, and we're looking to engage again, but Zeppeli goes down straight away.
Instantly picked off as he jumps on in, gets torn apart by the team. Virtus will be quickly followed afterwards. The D.Va roll is now up for Lahti Menace, but Ice has his as well for Nemesis. And neither going to use them just yet. Going to save them for the next fight. Good fallback from Lahti Menace. The push is going to come through from Nemesis, though. Going to kind of keep them pinned in towards their spawn. Not give them an opportunity to really make a difference. Hook narrowly misses Desperado as he does manage to blink away. Now, Team Nemesis now going to fall back towards the point. Here comes a good setup, though, for Lahti Menace. Now, they've got the Zenyatta roll. Zelepi's going to have his ult on Winston's Shun too, but they're going to come up against a lot of big ultimates from Nemesis if they try and die.
Yeah,
there it is. In fact, there's the ult coming out from Farmas as he drives on into the board to the point. They are on there and holding as best they can. It's going to wear down, but Olu uses his Graviton Ball too. Kuhio used the Earth Scatter and he hit a few people, but nothing huge. The ult comes out from Lahti Menace's Lucio to the sound barrier, keeping them all up and healthy. And ultimately, no one's lost anyone yet. There goes Lucio. Kuhio picks up that kill as Lahti Menace now on the back foot again. 75% already for Team Nemesis. They do finally lose their Reinhardt for the first time, but there's not much else left up here to back it up for Lahti Menace. They've lost 4. Daniel is alive, but he was back at spawn. And now they lose their 6th and final player. And I think that may have been their last chance. They're going to come back in now at 90%, but with no real ultimates and no real chance.
Yeah. Nemesis were holding the high ground, so Lahti Menace try and move to the point to pull them out of position, but then they commit to the point fight, and that's exactly where the tanks want to go. And now we see a more tanky competition coming out, but it's in overtime already. I don't know if anyone can even touch the point.
Nope, they're being pushed back. Nemesis keeping them outside the gate. They will get a man on the point for just a second, but an Earth Shatter hits over 5 of the remaining players, and that keeps them off of it, leaving Nemesis point number 1 comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely dominant, and they never found a way to crack it. It's one of those things with once you get the tanks into position, if you gain in the case that we saw in Village, it's so hard to dislodge them, and they need to play it a little bit smarter. So you saw them bait towards point, not that final fight over Canal Point, but the one before. They went towards point, and that pulled all the tanks out of position to the low ground. But then they just committed to that fight, where the tanks want to fight, rather than trying to reposition again. Yeah.
Now we're going inside, and you've talked about this in previous rounds. This is also a very tank-heavy, friendly map inside and here. And, well, Nemesis comfortably already having a lead, comfortably playing their tank meta. And, okay, we wanted to see them maybe switch it around a little bit, but now we've seen why they're sticking to it. So tried and true. Against teams with a little bit less coordination than the likes of ENCE or Gigantti, they can play the tank on well enough to bring it out no matter what gets thrown their way. They're keeping the victory up. They pick up a quick kill. Farmas picks off Kavaruska very early on. Ice is very low and almost demexed, but does fall back in time. but it is going to mean that Lahti Menace get themselves onto the capture point to kick things off. So it was an important pickoff for Farmus' Zenyatta. They've got themselves an Orisa now. First time we've seen her today here. Lahti Menace putting her down onto the point as the pressure comes in again from Nemesis. There's not so many ultimates in play, but they're getting on the point as quick as they can, and they've picked off the enemy Lucio. Charge coming out from Reinhardt, that's not hitting anything. Coming out from Nemesis, but there's a quick 5-man down from Desperado. It's high noon, and he picks off a huge amount of people to really cement Lahti Menace's hold.
Yeah, I like that from Nemesis for quick re-engage to try and not lose too much control, but they just have no one to pressure Desperado, and now they're trying to come on his left-hand side. Desperado's a little bit far forward, might be in trouble here.
He is dead. There he goes out of the picture, but is it enough? No. Team Nemesis get onto the point. They're going to start swinging it back their way. They do get the Lucio in. Dario falls down off the edge, pulled over by the Graviton ball. Zalepi, that's going to be a big thing to deal with, especially because Olu was so close to his ult. Now Nemesis losing more and more players as 3 are dead. Ice has been demeched and will be picked off in just a second. There she goes. Heifer finish off soon after. The Diva for Lahti Menace making sure she gets those cleanup kills on the back of their push. And Lahti Menace actually have strong hold and control of this map.
Yeah, they're looking really good on it, and now we're seeing the switch come out finally from Team Nemesis. Everyone except for Olu switching. Obviously, Olu has that Graviton, so he was going to use that before he switches. But they do have the Transcendence from Farm Top.
See how much damage Olu can get done. As you say, none of his teammates really have ultimates, so his Graviton ball's got to be either a weighted, patient one or a big deal. Another quick 100-0 pop from Farmus onto Kavaruskas. As the Graviton ball goes in, Lahti Menace are all clumped up on it, but none of them can really die because the damage just isn't there. Nemesis having lost Olu straight after, lose their Lucio, lose their Winston, lose their Diva. Lahti Menace, despite having lost their Zenyatta and Junkrat, are keeping the pressure up and doing what needs to be done. They're up to 99%. The overtime's ticking over. Desperado does get booped off the edge, but there's no one else left up for Nemesis. They can't get on the point to stall the overtime, and Lahti Menace definitely find their groove on that round.
Yeah, absolutely perfect, 100% to 0, and they just seem prepared for every situation in that one. Lots of boop off kills. Zapelli played particularly well on the Orisa, really made a lot of space for his team, was able to make it work, and we did see the switch off come out from Nemesis, but it doesn't look like they're going to commit to it again in this for this.
No, while they're inside, they changed up a little bit, but now back onto an outside map, back onto a little bit different. They're going to stay to their tried and trusted ball of tanks, ball of health, basically. Lahti Menace, though, looking, of course, to even up the series by taking this 2-1. They are happy with what their initial series are. They've got Virtus back on Junkrat. They've got Desperado back on Diva instead of the Tracer or McCree that he was on previously. Very quick into the point goes Davies, Nemesis, Lucio. Hooks come out, but they're bouncing off shields. The pressure starts to mount onto the point. Lahti Menace starting to charge ults as fast as they can, but Heifer and Kuhiha getting theirs up damn sight faster than their opposition. Nemesis are low, Lucio especially, but the pressure still comes through. There's the first kill. It's Ice's mech that goes down, but Heifer and Kuhiha answer by taking out the enemy right. And Lucio quickly afterwards trades back left, right, and center, but Lahti Menace have lost 3. Nemesis only losing 2. The ultimates were just about to finish for Lahti Menace as their players fell. Now they're going to have to wait for the revives and the respawns before they can really use them, and that means the point goes into Nemesis' favor.
Yeah, not sure what Farmus' plan with that coalescence was. He used it after like quite a few people had already died, and I don't think there was really enough weak players for them to be cleaned up, and now they find this difficult situation of trying to break the 4-tank hold, and they have Olu has Graviton and Kuhiya has Earthshatter, and he's been hitting big slams. They
come peek around the corner with the Graviton. Here it is, comes on out, fires it straight down and see who he gets. He gets about 5 of them. The charge comes in from Reinhardt. He picks one. Earthshatter straight afterwards, but doesn't hit too many players. Lahti Menace is still very healthy in amongst all of this. Nemesis is actually coming out on the back foot. Despite them initiating the fight, they've lost 3 players. Ice is about to get demexed. She will do. Is she going to fall off? Which she does. They lose their Roadhog as well. Lucio, the last man standing on the point, trying to do what he can to boop everyone off. But he will ultimately fall as well. And Lahti Menace somehow come out on top of that.
Yeah, huge ult showdown. Everyone just pressed Q, complete chaos. Gravitons on both sides, point blank Riptires. But ultimately, the self-destruction of a Riptire just had too much punch to hold on. And now we have an equal sound barrier situation and an Earth Shatter against self-destruct as we go into this next fight.
So, as the respawns are through, there's the self-destruct going in. The Lucio wall comes out from Nemesis as well. The Lucio comes out on both sides, in fact. Lahti Menace pop off theirs. Farmer still has his coalesce, but the kill's gone down onto the enemy Moira, so Nemesis lose that and their Reinhardt. They're going to fall back now. They're going to keep getting pressured here by the Lahti Menace team pushing forward. Desperado has to keep his mech alive, just about does it, as they keep the pressure up to try and charge Morals. Virtus is going to have Riptide soon. Farmers has got his coalesce back up again. There will be a coalesce for Team Nemesis as they come now back forward, as they are so low, charging and hailing as best they can. There's the coalesce coming out, healing up as fast as possible. Lahti Menace still got all players alive, but their Reinhardt is so incredibly low. He does get picked off as the Riptide comes up, but it's very, very exposed. Will he get around the back? Does no damage at all. Gabariscu picks off one. Farmus is taken out by Olu, and the health is still in favor of Lahti Menace, but Team Nemesis are keeping themselves alive. Another great Lucio ult comes out. Lahti Menace hold the point for now, but the Nemesis squad have so little health. Good hook from forward, takes out Virtus, and there it is. Lahti Menace being picked off. 3 players dead now. Reinhardt on the point is going to get finished off. It's a clean up from Nemesis, and they do have control. Yeah, all sort of stemmed from Team Nemesis just going a little bit too, not Team Nemesis, sorry, Lahti Menace going too aggressive, and then Zeppeli had his shield was weak the entire time, and it just seemed like a matter of time before they were going to get caught out, and eventually Nemesis are able to overpower them, as we see an aggressive push through the flank here. Coming up from the side on, the ults are very much even once again. The Earth Shatter's there for Kahihio if he can land it. The Reinhardt, the Roadhog ult goes out and pushes them back into the corner. And Virtus goes huge with some serious damage. Team wiping Nemesis with still 2 ultimates to play with. And Lahti Menace have even more ults still in their hand. Quick replay of that. Talk me through it. They're all just standing next to each other. They all get gravitons, and then Virtus did a shed load of damage. And that's the danger of running tanks.
Really in depth.
There's nothing more to say. I mean, nope. The key is obviously in going into the next fight, two of the other 5 ultimates. Here comes the self-destruction Riptide, just making space, just slowing them down. Maybe use a little bit early, and Virtus goes down in the back. Maybe an opportunity here. It was found straight away. Ice dive straight up to him, soaked up the tire and kills off Virtus in the process. It was big, but the overtime's there. Charge onto the point comes through from Reinhardt, but he's immediately killed off. He's doing what he can to try and keep the overtime ticking forward. Diva dives on, Roadhog's there to follow it up. They are doing everything they can to stay on the point as Lahti Menace are trying to tick down the overtime clock. Nemesis though being picked off left, right and centre. Olu somehow stays alive, but will be finished off right outside the other side of the point. Overtime time is still being ticked through by more charges from Reinhardt, but they've all been killed now. And Lahti Menace hold to take map 2. We've got a game, Pankey. We have a game indeed. The first time, I think, all day, both teams have managed to win a map in the same series. That's true. 1-1 now. Zelepi getting play of the game. Yeah, going to be one of these shatters. Kuhia has actually probably been hitting more big shatters, but this is that 6-man grab again. Just W plus M1, swing at everyone, do. Didn't even have to shatter. You just W and mouse 1 onto the Graviton. Good that they knew that as well. Do you know what I mean? That as soon as that Graviton hit everyone, they had their whole team there to follow up. They didn't need to throw any more ultimates in, and that obviously helped them. Like
not wasting more ultimates, not using his shield, and wasting. No one's doing the damage. Just start swinging.
Considering in that last fight as well, it was a little bit tense where Lahti Menace used the Riptire and self-destruct really early. Don't get anything out of either of them. Even lose Virtus on the Junkrat. Luckily, Vestola actually played really well in that final fight, got a lot of damage off and found a couple of kills, and was fully charged throughout all of it. So, works out. Obviously, a little bit of a tense moment here, but now we find ourselves tied at 1-1, and we're about to go into Lijiang Tower, another control map. Although this time, this one was actually picked by Nemesis.
It was picked by Nemesis, but I don't think that really speaks too much to the way it's going to be played, having seen that go down. I think, as you say, the team compositions and their ultimate management is really going to decide this map more than the map layout or anything itself, because that do on other maps or against other teams, it was purely situations against each other where one came out in a slightly better way than the other.
Yeah, like we touched on, I can't remember, maybe I think it was the second game where it was like, cycling the ultimates is so important in this tank heavy meta because those are your big killing blows, and because there's so many tanks, everyone gets their ultimates quicker just because there's more easier targets to hit and there's more health, there's more damage to do, so you get more ultimates in the grand scheme of things.
Charges things up quicker, a lot of extra shields to charge on things as well, but still, looking at their compositions right before things kick off, everything's very familiar.
Yeah, interesting to see if we get Virtus on Pharah again. I mean, while individually, Pharah's been good for hitting his shots, charging his ultimates, etc., etc. He's struggled to make an impact in the grander scheme of things because while he's in the air doing a lot of damage, his team on the ground are just losing to this death ball.
when he can't do the damage quickly enough or in a impactful enough way to actually swing it for his fight.
And while we saw him try and get off a couple of ultimates, they also weren't really very impactful, didn't get a whole lot of anything done. So need to try and see that a bit better from him. Out they go. He is on that Farah. He's got a Farmer on Mercy with him as well to keep him going and keep him damage boosted. So he does try and start things off by pushing them back towards the bridge. Cover goes down quickly. That's a good one for Lahti Menace. Desperado picks off that Junkrat early on. Diva's going to be demeched over Lahti Menace, but she'll stay alive. They are going to keep the pressure up as Lucio for Nemesis is low and pushed back into the hiding. A point is in Lahti Menace's hands as things sit, but it's currently locked, so we'll have to wait and see. Oh, they picked off Virtus's Farah. There's still a lot of damage gone. Coveriscu's coming back as Soldier 76 as the Coalesce is going out early on, and Farmers will actually fall to it. So the Mercy's gone too. It's a lot of damage now still on Nemesis' side, and they're starting to pick off the low health kills because of it. Lahti Menace will fall 4 players down. Virtus and Farmers are back up, but they aren't going to come in 2v5. So this is going to be a good hold, and this first point cap for Team Nemesis.
Yeah, Lahti Menace did exactly what Nemesis wanted them. The most vulnerable part of quad tank composition is when they're transitioning to where they want to hold. And you saw them pick off Karbarowski straight away in that, but then they just followed them into the close quarters at the back of a point, as we see a big ultimate showdown in this next fight, Pankey.
Zalepi's diving in. The ult comes out from Farah. This time he seems to do a lot of work. Gets off through deep and inside the point. Now the contest is on. Capturing back one way as Virtus will finish off Olu as well. Team Nemesis are crumbling left, right, and center, but Olu's going to have his ult back up when he respawns. Lahti Menace have managed to capture that point, and they actually didn't use too many ultimates other than Virtus's and Zalepis to get it done.
Yeah, you see how much better that fight goes when we take the fight in the open rather than trying to engage the into the back enclosed area of the point. They do have a lot of ultimates still available. They have to be careful of this Graviton. Harder to land a Graviton versus a Diva and versus a dive competition because they're more spread out by nature. But they're coming through the backside here, Pandy.
Yeah, it's coming around the back. Desperado though gets around and snipes out the Soldier 76 already. That's a big point of damage gone. They've lost their Reinhardt too. Nemesis need to back away from this. They've lost so many players, but Ice is pushed over the edge. Virtus gets 2 with that. Now, Lahti Menace hold once again. It's a good start for that hold. Kabarascu being picked off by Desperado was a big start to it. Kuhio then kept going deep before the rest of the team could get the fallback call, and they crumbled straight after.
The problem here for Nemesis, they kind of have to keep going the same way because that's where their composition's strongest, but it makes it really predictable for Lahti Menace. So you see the spam going down. Olu still with that Graviton though as they walk in there, he's looking for it.
There is a push back again from the Lucio. Tries to get one over the edge, but they survive this time. Virtus picked off very early from Lahti Menace this time. He was using his ult. The Coalesce goes in on top of the Graviton. A lot of health being healed, but a lot of damage being done. The Earthscatter comes down, pushes them down too. Kabarascu's getting his ult off, doing a lot of damage in return, and Lahti Menace aren't managing to keep this one alive. They lose their Lucio and they lose their Winston straight after ulting, and Lahti Menace do crumble, putting Team Nemesis in control of the point. They're trying to get on there and contesting it, keeping it delayed for as long as they can, but they are just throwing their lives away, and it does go back into Nemesis' hands.
Yeah, they still got up a 74% overall, and again, they took that fight in the enclosed area, and I don't know why they weren't more aggressive when they were transitioning rather than one they're already in that position. But we see Desperado touching the point from behind as Virtus applies for pressure from the front.
Virtus up front with the Mercy to support again as well. Desperado gets deep in the back, doing what he can to everyone from behind. He's very low, but he will get out of there alive. The old self-destruct comes in. There's the sound barrier coming out from Lucio on Team Nemesis to keep his team as healthy as they can. They are taking a lot of damage through this back window, but it's not finishing too many people off. Ice's mech gets chopped down, but that is it. Lahti Menace now still alive on the point, but they do lose out on their Lucio. They've lost 2 on Team Nemesis' side. Olu, which he didn't have the Graviton, but he's dead damage, but he's out of the picture now. They are trading players back and forth, but Lahti Menace ultimately coming out with a few more people left alive. But are they on the point enough to capture it? They've got to still get through Kuhio first, and they do now shake it up. Quick dive forward though from the respawn, just going to try and delay it, keep the contest going, and the capture is not there. Nemesis are still taking up their points, and it does now finally swing over to Lahti Menace.
Yeah, it's going to come down to one final fight here, and if we look against the ultimates, Olu has that Graviton on the Earth Shatter available for Kuhia, but there is a Valkyrie, Pulse Bomb, and Primal Rage available, and that the rest of the ultimates actually for Lahti Menace are nearly there.
Yeah.
They need to be more aggressive though when they're transitioning in position like this. They're going to take a close quarters fight, and this could be devastating for Lahti Menace.
Coming around the back, here's the Graviton, goes out on the point, doesn't actually touch too many people. Desperado falls down just to get his ult off. Stilepi's gone as well. Lahti Menace lose 3 in very, very quick succession. It's in overtime, but Nemesis are on the point with superior numbers. Here comes the ult from Virtus, but it doesn't do too much damage. He gets picked off. Lahti Menace has lost all their players, and the capture goes straight over to Nemesis. That does delay the overtime for a little bit longer, but Lahti Menace, with no ults left, with players being picked off, have to try and get to the point as it ticks up to 99%. They are now in there, but Desperado is picked off straight away as soon as he lands. They are staying and holding it because of the overtime, but they are being picked off one by one, just trying to dive on in there. Virtus is still outside, Mercy's still outside with him. They are getting the kills on Kivarascu, so Lahti Menace get one, but is it going to be enough? They get Olu as well now, actually. They are off the point. They have to get closer. Mercy gets herself... Not Mercy, sorry. Farah gets herself in and does manage to delay the overtime a little bit longer, but her team is still dying all around her. They are being picked off without getting anything in return. Nemesis losing all their ultimates, but staying alive on the point is what matters. A Lucio ult comes out right as they continue to push in, and Lahti Menace will fail to recapture that point.
Yeah, well played by Nemesis there. They knew the strengths of their composition. They kept taking it into those close quarters. And they took advantage of Lahti Menace not really forcing them to make too many errors. And they take a one-round advantage here in this third map. And obviously quite an important one this, obviously, because if you win this, whoever wins this map, it has match point for 2 maps.
Yeah, and that's a very comfortable place to sit in. When you're looking down the barrel of staying in the tournament, not going home, having 2 whole maps of match point to play it out on, feels good.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely where you want to be, and it looks like we're going to see positions for a big battle in Courtyard. Virtus on the Junkrat being the key difference as it's quad tank, and both mirror rollouts from both teams here as they're just going to clash for one big fight on the point.
Onto the point they go. It's not going to unlock for 15 seconds yet, but the ultimate charging is needed. Akuhia actually picks off Stilepi. Tank for tank, Reinhardt for Reinhardt already. A nice boop with 2 off the edge. Lucio and Moira down. There's Team Nemesis coming out on top here, forcing FC Lahti Menace back and towards their own spawn. As the point unlocks, it's going to go straight into Nemesis' hand, and this is a great start for them.
Yeah, Kuhir is really bullish with his Reinhardt. He's really aggressive, really in the other team's face, and it just gave him such a positional advantage there. And then that booth was just the icing on the cake, and now they've stuffed him at this corner with.
A charge comes out from the Reinhardt on Nemesis from behind Lahti Menace, but doesn't actually get anyone off the edge. Surprises them, but he will fall all the same. Danielle will also die down on that Lucio, meaning Lahti Menace's survivability is going to deplenish quite quickly. Now, Team Nemesis are starting to lose a couple of their own, but did they get the kills when they needed to ahead of the time to keep themselves alive for the respawns? Lahti Menace have a tire coming on in towards the point. It's going to land straight onto Lucio, who just popped his sound barrier, so not do too much damage to him. Olu picks off Desperado. The Graviton goes out on point, locking in some of those players, ready for Reinhardt to smash them about. Lahti Menace do start to shake off the Team Nemesis hold. There's just enough players diving into it one at a time, though, that are actually delaying the recapture. Diva doing a great job of staying alive to make that happen. Roadhog pushes a couple more people down and off the edge. A great pick for Kavarascu. Desperado will trade him back. Earthscatter hits a lot of players towards the edge of the entrance for Lahti Menace, but Nemesis still holding them on there. They've got control of it, but they cannot shake away and get to swing back. It is so scrappy, continuing to keep it up as more and more Lahti Menace players are picked up. Kuhio gets 2 that time. Desperado falls straight off the edge of the map all on her own. And once more, Nemesis somehow hold on and keep themselves in control of the control point.
The missing ingredient there was Vestola wasted his Graviton on... There was only 3 enemy players alive, 2 of them were shattered on the floor, then he used the Graviton as well. They were able to stagger back in, and when that fight was really scrappy, if they still had a Graviton, that would have been a much different fight.
Moira ults going off for both teams then as they continue. Menace onto the point to continue this fight. Earthscatter goes out to the Moira and finish her off, and that is it. Nemesis comfortably winning that point and that map and putting themselves in a happy spot.
Yeah, all has to come in that big fight in the middle where it went on for about 50%, you have to say, as we're going to get a replay of this Lucio Boop, I believe, from the first fight, when he gets both supports. I think he's just going to pop out the window here, or just pop through the door.
Yeah.
Easy as you like.
Falls through the door and pushes the boat off. Enemy Lucio is well included in that and goes through and finishes off, or helps finish off the Zarya as well. It's a big, big play, but it got them control of it and they never lost it from there on out. That's 2-1 then in favor of Nemesis. They have that couple of 2 games now of match point that they can be a bit more comfortable on, and we're finally going to go and see our 4th map of the day what's been our fourth map for everything, Route 66 now.
Yeah.
Very different from everything we've seen so far today because it's our first true payload escort map completely.
Yeah.
What do you see going down here? We've talked about compositions, we've talked about how static Nemesis can be, and it's working for them this time around, having that 2-1 lead, but will it work on an escort map?
Yeah, I imagine, as much as I'd like to see something else, or maybe a bit more variation from both teams, try and play to some of their strengths they've shown in the qualification, I imagine we're going to see very much both teams just bashing heads with tanks once again.
Yeah, so we are seeing, as you saw, a couple of players pick up and leave for a bathroom break there. They are 3 maps in, so they'll need a minute or 2, I'm sure. Thinking it over and resetting, we're seeing Menace switch up to loads of different ideas, and it isn't quite working. Desperado on a couple of different heroes here and there. Virtus switching 2 or 3 times in some of these games. It does feel like the Nemesis strategy of sticking to something safe and friendly and reliable regardless is coming out strong.
It's hard because when you run the 4 tanks, we touched on it during the cast, it just gives you a large room for error. Do you know what I mean? If you stand slightly out of position or you take 200 damage that you maybe shouldn't take,
yeah,
you just get healed for 200 health and your support gains ultimate. You die for 200 damage, you take 200 damage you shouldn't do on Junkrat, you're just dead.
Yeah.
So
big change.
Much more consistency. And again, this isn't, you know, this isn't the Overwatch League, this isn't the elitist firms here.
Yep.
And they're punished more by the tank composition.
Yeah, that I think comes out to
harder to punish mistakes with 4 tanks.
It's 4 tanks. That I think comes out to what really shows the better teams we have here is that everyone's going to make mistakes to a point. What really shows these teams that will step one above the other is who punishes those other mistakes better, because it's like, going to happen.
If we throw it back to that last round on Lijiang Tower, and you think when there was that scrappy fight, I think it was about 3 versus 3, and there's an Earth Shatter that hits both of the players, and then there's Stola throws in the Graviton as well to try and clean them up quickly. I can sort of see how you'd get carried away and you're like, get these players off the point, stop it, convert it as soon as possible. But they buy enough time, more stall and stagger comes in, they never quite clean it up. And we saw that in their first game as well. They sometimes struggle to finish fights they'd already won.
Yeah.
And then it comes this really scrappy fight. And all I could think when I was watching that is, wouldn't it be great if you had a Graviton Surge still to clean up this final bit of a fight? Wouldn't that be great? Unfortunately, you wasted it. And then you even saw the other Zarya even get her ultimate during that fight to finish it off.
And there were a couple of moments too when we just had divas that were trying so hard to get onto the point quickly, or to dive on and clean these people up, or to go a bit deeper than perhaps they wouldn't necessarily needed to, but because it was so scrappy and hectic, they got into it. And just straight falling off the edge of the map all in their own, like mistakes like that, where it's like, shouldn't really be just falling off the map without a boop or without this, just because you're flying and then little things that will stack up and make a big difference. And okay, you're dead, you're gone, there's no reviving from that, and you can't clean up the fight because of it, and that's helping them swing back. And it's seemingly small things that do make a big difference. Yeah,
especially on control, because it's so short. Like you get such little time. Every mistake is extrapolated to feel even more so. Like losing that first fight, it's been talked a lot before about how important it is to win that first fight in control, and at least like a 60-70%, something in that region, success rate of winning the map. And it's just, again, that's accentuated because of the tanks as well, because it's so hard to dislodge these tanks. You saw it when both teams had that hold out for choke and that very tiny door they got to try and get through. It's a nightmare. You have to just sort of throw ultimates into it and just try and force your way through it.
Yeah, so now we're going on to Route 66. It's kind of a bit different to that. It's more open, especially in the earlier stages. It's more room to play with, more room to position and get around and perhaps get behind some of these tanks. But they've got to continue moving forward more, and things get a bit smaller and a bit tighter. But there's still some high ground to play, and we have seen Desperado trying in one situation, getting off a great high noon with McCree. And if you can do that kind of thing again, maybe Menace have the control they need. But it was so rare and so random that he did it that can he do it as consistently as they're going to need?
It'll be interesting to see how teams approach this from an offensive point of view, because defensively, most teams always set up on the cafe, on that bar, on that first corner. And if you have, say, a Junkrat up there to try and spam down the tanks, from the offensive team, if you're running that quad tank again, or you're running maybe like a triple tank and Junkrat of your own, you don't have a lot of heroes that can really just go up there and deal with them. And we could see a lot of stall coming out on that first point from the defenders if there's not something to sort of break that.
We'll see if that's the case. As you see, the players are now back on the stage then. Break is finished, and they will be back to go in just a moment. They are obviously double checking settings and headsets, making sure nothing broke in the time they were gone, and confirming readiness in chat before we go on through. If, remember, this does go to map number 5, it will be Hollywood, so we are looking at another hybrid map should that take its shape. There's the last few Nemesis players filtering back in now. You can see that the smiles are staying there on their faces. They were happy and chatting away while we waited for the last two to come in, and that is what we need to see from them. They need that morale boost, they need that momentum, and they are currently holding the lead, so they should have it. Lahti, Menace have confirmed ready, so once Nemesis got their headsets on, we should be good to go.
One thing to throw out as well, Route 66 is actually Lahti Menace's map pick.
That's true, yep.
So hopefully something, well, you'd like to think something they feel confident on since they picked it, or at least something they're not too worried about playing. And I think, have we seen every team has won their map pick so far? Am I remembering that right?
I'll take your word for that, my mind hasn't.
Testing the memory now. But yeah, we're going to be moving on to Route 66 here. Servers loaded up. We're all ready. Everyone's going to start picking their heroes. Yeah. And this is obviously this is a must-win for Lahti Menace.
Yes, it's a must-win for Lahti Menace, and well,
tournament on the line for them.
To be fair, it's a must-win for Nemesis too. Like, you don't want to drag this out to a 5th map, especially because you say it's getting later now here in Finland. Of course, it's 7:30. It's not crazy late, but tomorrow we start earlier. Tomorrow it's home. You can look back over the games, you can reset, you can discuss it as a team, you can get a good night's sleep in, and come back tomorrow nice and fresh early in the morning. You don't want to drag this out to late and then have to come back early and fresh in the morning with a lack of sleep. So, as the defense comes out, our Nemesis squad is sticking to what they know, and that 4-tank squad as before. Lahti Menace, though, have a bit more time, of course, to prepare their defenses, think things up, and, well, they've got a few choices to go with. As you did mention, though, with Nemesis' setup, what they can and are currently doing is looking to stall here on this first corner.
They're looking to go aggressive out of this corner. They're looking to just... So the idea here of where we can see these players now is they're just going to speed boost out and try and surprise the enemy team with an attack and just overwhelm them while they're not prepared.
All right, well, we'll see whether it works out for them hiding here in this tunnel.
Is it a Bastion comp?
I mean, he's currently on a Bastion comp, and he's got the Orisa to stand there and look after him. It does look like that's sticking the way. Yep. Bastion comp then for Lahti Menace. Just get themselves on the point. The charge comes out from Team Nemesis, but they're just holding on to the payload itself.
They're in so much trouble against this Bastion now. They're in so much trouble.
Being this aggressive against so much damage, Bastion going to push forward a couple of moments and continue spraying down straight onto the shield. The great Orisa gravity ball pulls them up, and that is exposed Diva Mech. Lucio picks off the kill to begin with. They're staying on the point there, and Nemesis are actually staying alive quite well here, considering how close that Bastion is. Coalesces up for a Hepa. They actually pushed them back as they picked off the kill. They get the Bastion. Lahti Menace losing out on that big damage dealer. Duel fall back straight away before he comes back up. However, he does now have ultimate. This might be the pressure they need to shake them off the payload and really get this composition set into where it needs to be. Sets down into turret mode, starts to wail away onto the Reinhardt, but the heal comes out. Not in time though. Kuhiha will fall, as does Lucio and the Roadhog, and there it is. Lahti Menace now starting to unload on the enemy team and really take them down. Everyone falling means Lahti Menace have control of the payload. Nemesis dead and respawning, and now have to rethink their defense at the next spot.
Yeah, advantage of taking a fight that aggressive is you definitely get a second fight before the end of the first point. I feel like Bastion set up, they were shredding the shield, they made a bit of a meal of it, again, not finishing off the fights that they maybe should have a stronger position in. And now they're going to walk round, and they will have the time to set up Virtus on this high ground. But he's actually falling back to the cart because they're coming around the side here, Pancake. Yeah,
they're coming around the side, they might get around behind the cart, and they are getting up there. Bastion is going to target. They're going to try and charge him through. He does get taken out by Diva on the way. He, however, kills the enemy Reinhardt in the process. Kavaruska takes down the Bastion, though, with his ultimate on Roadhog, and they've taken out those two very important heroes, meaning Lahti Menace are now in the back foot. Desperado falls, Farmus falls on Moira, Lucio falls as well. Lahti Menace are being cleaned up here by Nemesis. They've lost their own Zarya and Lucio, but they've still got enough people left up that they'll clean up that Diva as well. Nemesis did a good job with that flank.
Yeah, they played it really well. They used the sound barrier and, you know, all those extra shields on top of all the health you already have, on top of Moira heals, just overwhelmed the Bastion And Virtus literally just had too many targets, and we did it really well coordinated, all went at the same time, but now we see a high ground push. Virtus still on this Bastion, but he's a bit isolated on the cart here.
He does go on the cart a bit isolated, but he does have the support coming quickly after him. The ult comes out from Lahti Menace's Lucio, but the Moira coalesce for Nemesis is quickly there to follow it. Good Earthshatter gets a few people down as the Bastion ult goes through, and a couple of quick swings coming out from Nemesis's Lahti Menace's Reinhardt, picking off 3, 4, 5 kills now as Nemesis are all fallen. D.Va's out of him. And completely wiped. Nemesis, after a great push to regain control of the car, they get wiped out and lose it quickly again afterwards.
Yeah, really bold ultimate from Virtus there to go into tank configuration under so much pressure, but Farmers kept him alive. Zeppeli made some plays in the back, and now this is the position they want. Virtus spun up on the high ground, Zeppeli in front of him, everyone else moving the car, but they're coming from the low ground here, Nemesis.
Nemesis coming out from the low ground, up onto the point, Graviton Ball and ult comes in from Tracer as well. Lahti Menace doing what they can to try and hold on. Another charge comes forward. A shatter comes out and hits, I think, 3 people. It's doing a lot of damage as Farmers will fall. 3 people fall on Lahti Menace. They still got Virtus, Desperado, and D.Va's still alive. Only the ult on D.Va as Virtus will quickly fall afterwards. Desperado doing everything he can to fall back. Stays alive, but is so incredibly low. D.Va got out to safety before that happened. Now he's being pushed back again. Desperado into the tunnel. Not quite enough. Lahti Menace pushed away again as 13 seconds tick on through. They can't quite make it to the checkpoint unless this next fight goes their way. Out comes the D.Va. They push on again, trying to get up to the payload as 2 seconds tick down on the clock. A great smash coming out from Zelepi's Reinhardt as he takes down, I think, 4 players on the Nemesis roster with the stun. Here's the Bastion ult coming through now too, but the Graviton Ball's pinning them into the corner. They are close enough to the point though to keep the payload on overtime. Lots of Team Nemesis players dead. Lahti Menace are all very, very healthy though, and Nemesis are crumbling. They cannot hold as they will hit the checkpoint. Lahti Menace with a good push forward.
That's crucial as well. Remember, Lahti Menace on the brink of elimination from this tournament. You don't want to fail to capture first point on a tournament point like that, or map or series point even. And now they've got the Bastion set up again. They get Desperado goes forward, finds a pick onto Olu. That's going to give them more space to work with. Slow down Olu building up another Graviton too. And now it's all about how well they can protect Virtus. The protect for President strategy. All the resources will be on him to keep him alive, and how much damage he can do. So
they sent their D.Va forward, and the other way edged him up to try and see what was waiting for them, and ultimately there's nothing waiting for them. Lahti Menace are going to be allowed to just push this point all the way through towards checkpoint number 2 without much of a fallback. Here it comes though. Nemesis snuck out of nowhere, straight onto the payload to move that Bastion off as quick as they can. However, he's got the ultimate from the Lucio to keep him going. Gets a quick kill on cover as goes Roadhog as fast as he can. The Reinhardt is pinned in the corner trying to keep himself alive. Virtus gets a second kill onto Lucio. Good smash comes out to take Nemesis down again, and they are kills flying left, right, and center for both teams, but Nemesis ultimately are the team coming out behind. They have more dead players. They've lost their D.Va mech, and D.Va herself falls shortly after. Lahti Menace did a great job of holding that.
Yeah, it looked like disaster for a second as they speed boosted out of house, like Virtus were going to be caught out of position again and just overwhelmed. But he managed to fall back, take position off the cart, which is much better suited to dealing with that tank rush, and just mowed them all down, and now he's in a great position to hold this choke.
Holding the choke, and they outcome again. There's also lots of ultimates still live on Lahti Menace, including one for that Bastion himself, but Bastion will fall. They do trade straight back by getting the enemy Lucio and the enemy Reinhardt. The Moira is low as well. Nemesis is in a tough spot as they lose Moira on top of everything else. D.Va's got a lot of health. Lucio comes up, but Roadhog will spawn. Nemesis staying on the point, do get it through, and will hit that second checkpoint momentarily. They've got the numbers advantage, they've got the people they need, and now they're just getting 3 kills onto the Nemesis players still nearby.
If you consider how close they were to losing their offense on that first point, but now in a great position. Tank configuration available again. Sound barrier and pulse bomb not far behind. They do have a Graviton and self-destruct to be wary of, but even when Virtus hasn't been doing all the work himself, he's been making the space and forcing the hand of the enemy team. And again, they're speed rushing this Bastion.
Desperado trying to get around behind. He is doing a lot of damage to that Junkrat. Can't quite finish him off on his own, but Virtus will fall as the Junkrat goes down. Here's a 1-for-1 trade, but the ultimate is up on Bastion. He didn't get to use it. Desperado goes deep for cover. Rescue gets in with his trap actually from the grave as a good ult comes out from Reinhardt, stunning a couple of players on top of the Lucio ult. Olu will fall down without using his ultimate as Nemesis once again are being pressured back, but this time they're doing a good job of keeping themselves in it with an even trade onto Lahti Menace. They've taken out the Lucio who still had his ultimate. There's a lot of ults on Lahti Menace as they keep this fight going. Desperado comes around the back again, gets his ult off. There's a lot of damage as the Thiever ult takes down 2. Nemesis, who were doing a good job holding on, have suddenly crumbled all over again. Olu, the last man left alive, is going deep forward as best he can to try and delay, but he will get picked off, and it ends up with another 5-6-man wipe for Team Nemesis.
Yeah, great slam from Zappelli in the middle of that, and now Virtus, as you said, tank configuration available again, and he's set up on the high ground here. It's going to be really difficult to deal with him up here.
Gets around behind the Reinhardt, tries to do what damage he can. There's the Bastion up on the high ground, goes down on the low ground again to try and get another shot onto Olu. Takes him low and he will get the kill. Olu is down and out of the picture again without using his ultimate. Lahti Menace going to continue their push forward. They've got 23 seconds and they're doing so well. Lucio goes up to keep them healthy. Bastion is coming up now to try and push from behind. Junkrat diving in onto the payload itself to try and stall it, but he will get picked off with ease by the Bastion, who gets a second kill in the same splash. 3 kills. Diva from ice, take down 3 though. Is this what it's going to be for Lahti Menace to hold it out? They take down important kills, but still they're channeling onto the Zarya. They still have the Diva of their own and they're doing everything they can. Lahti Menace now have the overtime ticking on through. They are being cleaned up and pushed back up the point. It is going to tick down to nothing as they can't touch it, and right before the last checkpoint, it's held.
What an insane series of plays. So Kahia comes in, hits a huge slam. Meanwhile, Virtus has swapped onto tank configuration, goes and gets a huge free kill on the players trying to kill the Earth-Shattered players. Then the self-destruct comes in and gets a free K on top of that to swing it back in the favour.
Big stayed just about alive in this map.
But as much as that was a huge clutch play, like 2 clutches in a row to out-clutch the other team, analysis.
Deep level.
When that cart, it's effectively finished. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not literally completed, but it's right there. It's basically touching the final point, and we talked earlier about how offensively favoured King's Row is. Route 66, not so much. So you'd be fairly happy with Lahti Menace. Now, this gives you plenty to work with.
All right, so let's see how they are comfortable and how they feel going into their defensive round then. Remember, Nemesis are 2-1 up at the moment. So they're feeling comfortable with their situation regardless of this map's play out. For now. Lahti Menace on defense, bringing Desperado on the Reaper. We saw it a couple of times in the earlier maps, but it wasn't the most impactful of heroes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's for hard counter. It does so much damage to tanks. It's for tank buster, and that is Reaper's role in this game. But he does struggle to get into position, and when there's 4 tanks, again, he can be overwhelmed. But it looks like they might be going for aggressive hold as well.
They are certainly hiding in these tunnels to begin with, up in the higher ground of it. As for the Nemesis attack coming out, well, they are, well, actually I was going to say switching, but no. Kavaroscu's staying on Hanzo. Is it going to be for...
I think he's just Sonicking.
The Sonicking again.
Yeah.
Yep, we go. It switches to Roadhog, just like we saw before. So, same as their King's Row initial start. They're onto the payload already then, and it is moving forward. A hook comes through as he pulls Zarya in. She is low, but she won't be finished off. Instead, Lahti Menace lose their Lucio. Reaper is doing what damage he can. Spraying those shotguns towards the tanks through the shields. Kuhiya will die off, and that's a good pick for them. They're going to continue the pressure as they push on to Diva. She's going to get demexed momentarily. There it is. As she does get pulled forward, it will not be enough to finish off the hero itself. Lucio low, but falling back. Team Nemesis keeping the rest of their team largely alive. Back into the base to heal up. Kavarescu switching to Junkrat to continue the damage they need to melt the enemy front line.
Yeah, they just seem slightly overwhelmed. In comes an early Graviton, catching them all.
Early Graviton catches a lot of them. The Moira will go through to charge it on as well, and there's a lot of damage from Reaper coming out. But Lahti Menace taking 5 of the 6 possible kills there with a great Graviton ball to lock them in next to the payload and keep this first point in control.
Yeah, no, they did. I mean, obviously they won that fight very convincingly. Maybe did use the ultimates a little bit early, could have waited for something else to come out of them, but they're still in a pretty strong situation. Still have this Earth Shatter, and they nearly have a Death Blossom as well. Yeah,
they still have a lot of other ults. It was just the one. Up and over the top goes the Junkrat ult, but it gets picked off with ease by Danielle. Nice play from that Lucio. Lucio ult comes out then from Nemesis as they want to continue the push. The Earth Shatter comes through from Lahti Menace, but doesn't do a whole lot, just as the Reinhardt will straight away die. Now, it is a quick charge forward from the rest of the Nemesis team, but they are being picked off, and there's a damage coming up from the Reaper. He will die before he does anything serious, but he did kill Olu. Kavarascu is dead at the same time, so that's the Junkrat and the Zarya dead before Lucio and Diva follow up as Nemesis lose more players. Lahti Menace held, and they still have 3 ultimates to go. This is a great start for them as it's down to 2 minutes. Now, I don't want to speak too soon, of course, because Lahti Menace didn't get the first point pushed forward until overtime hit themselves. But if Nemesis can continue holding the way they are right now, it's definitely looking good.
Yeah, all about the Graviton in this next fight. Olu trying to get aggressive. He catches lots of them. It's never follow-up. Graviton's traded, actually.
Lucio was the lowest player, but he stayed alive on Nemesis as they pushed forward, trying to get this payload moving. Lahti Menace still got plenty of health on their end. Desperado doing what he can as a quick kill comes out onto Reinhardt from the Zarya. Another one picking off the Lucio, and again, Nemesis are being pushed back towards their spawn. Lahti Menace are having a great day here. Minute 10. Still on the clock, and Nemesis are trying all sorts to push their way through this hold. But Lahti Menace still have ultimates to play, or will momentarily have some ultimates to play with as the push comes over the top. They bring the Reaper in as well and go deep. The quick pick-off will pick down the Reinhardt all over again. Smash comes on out, and it's a couple more as Ice picks off Virtus. This Lahti Menace squad do lose 2 tanks now, but Nemesis have lost 3 players themselves. Ice has been demexed, but is staying on top of the payload as long as they can. Graviton Ball is here for Olu, but he's not going to use it just yet. He's going to fall back through the tunnels. The damage is there as the team are following him with 3 more. Olu gets back onto the payload and alive, and it does look like finally Lahti Menace are being pushed away, and Nemesis will be able to move this payload forward a little way further. But with 20 seconds to go, Menace are coming out with a few more ultimates and might be able to hold them before they get to the next point.
Yeah, both teams going to have Graviton, Whole Hog available as well. They are going to have the sound barrier here from Danny as well, and that could swing it. If they can survive for Graviton better with that sound barrier, they're definitely going to get another chance on this as we're going to go into overtime in 6 seconds. And if they want a chance of finishing it here, Nemesis have to capture this point.
Here it comes then, 6 seconds, Graviton Ball goes out one end, and Lahti Menace starts to get poked apart. Before he can get his Graviton Ball out, the Zarya is picked off for Lahti Menace, as with 4 of his teammates, leaving only Desperado alive. A team wipe for Nemesis. Lahti Menace perhaps going a bit too all in, trying to pull that out. As Nemesis continue to push this forward, they will get it onto this checkpoint.
Yeah, Nemesis win the battle here, but they're now quite far behind in that ult economy, because as the downside of killing all your enemies before they use their ultimates is they will have the advantage in the next fight. But time bank against them here, but remember, there wasn't a lot of time for Lahti Menace either when they made their big run back.
Nope, exactly the case. Kavarascu has his hole, Effa has his, so we have a little bit of healing and damage, but Lucio is close, and Reinhardt could be close too in a moment. Lahti Menace get the Graviton Ball off in the tight space, and Olu will be picked off with that Desperado ultimate. Virtus picks off 1, and Zalepi picks off 1 as well. Damage coming out for Lahti Menace as they pick off 4 out of the 6 kills. 5 out of the 6 kills possible as Nemesis start to fall down. That's a full 6. They get them all, and that's what you mentioned, having that ultimate advantage. Very well used by Lahti Menace.
Yeah, you're seeing here the difference Desperado's making on the Reaper and now the Trace, who's just adding that extra killing edge to their hold. So they may obviously always have that follow-up on the Graviton or anything else. But it's another quick fight.
Smash comes out, Moira goes on through. Nemesis are onto the payload, trying to push it forward as fast as they can. Damage and healing coming out from both Moiras as the Reinhardt for Lahti Menace falls down as the only casualty of that fight so far. The pressure keeps on going through. Daniel will fall. Lahti Menace losing a second one now. This is looking good for Nemesis. They want to continue this push forward. Hook comes through from Virtus right before he falls, so it's not a big deal, as the Zarya is now going to next focus for Nemesis, and then she will die. Desperado low, backs away, gets himself to safety, but will still be deep in the enemy lines, just trying to delay that
at the end there to get respawns in. And we're down to 50 seconds, and they've still got quite a fair amount of the second point to get through, so definitely going to see a chance for a re-engage here. And Vestola does have that Graviton slightly sooner, but Olu isn't far away. But if they can get a clean kill with clean wipe with Vestola's grab, this will be huge.
He's feeling very familiar here with the overtime on the first point, but then a consistent regular push on the back. Guhiho will fall as Lahti Menace does pick up that kill, taking down a couple more members of Nemesis as their Lucio goes down as well. Olu is back up, but he's not got a lot of health. He's coming forward, doesn't have his Graviton Surge as it goes out. It does lock a lot of them in. They do start to pick off and clean out Lahti Menace. Everyone's back up from Nemesis and moving forward. It's all a case of Desperado delaying, but he can't. He's picked off as well, and Lahti Menace are being killed off again. 10-player kill streak for Kavarascu now, and they're continuing to push this payload forward. Yes, they're down to 3 seconds, but they're on it, and they are not far from the next checkpoint. If Lahti Menace do not time these ultimates or time this pushback well, they may just give up another one. Here they come. The smash comes out from Zilepi, hits a few players, but he misses the charge. There's the ult coming out from Moira, trying to do a lot of damage. Desperado gets a great ult out to take down 2. Olu and Kuhiho going down. Overtime is there now as the Moira is being flanked again. The mech will fall. They have lost their Reinhardt on Lahti Menace, but more people dead for Nemesis than before. Ice is out of his mech and being pressured again. Desperado doing a lot of damage. The overtime is still though being held on by this Lucio staying on the payload. Graviton comes out from Lahti Menace and it's a big one to finish it off. Nemesis will fall and Lahti Menace successfully take it.
It's a close one.
It was a close one.
And we're going to go all the way, it looks like.
All the way to a 5th map. Farmus then with the play of the game. Coming around behind, and it's a big Moira ultimate as this fight went through on top of course, the Graviton.
I think if I remember,
actually didn't even ult that one.
That was the first fight when they got the Coalescence and the Graviton just before the other team and just overwhelmed them. Got the free win with those ones.
Yep.
But yeah, so going back to the offense there from Lahti Menace, it was so crucial how they got that extra distance in the end because they were still pushed quite far away. And interested to see him switching up to the Bastion. Obviously not something we see a lot and only useful in some situations, but obviously Bastion does shred through tanks quite a lot.
Yep, and it did pick them up a lot of kills. 2 or 3 kills in ultimate form, really swinging those things. We saw there at the end the push forward for Nemesis. Ultimately, they weren't getting those clutch multi-kills in those final fights. They were getting one person in the Reinhardt and then couldn't really follow it up with anything else. Maybe if they'd had something like that Bastion, that damage that the Lahti Menace's push had, they could have kept that going a little bit further. But their fights were a tad slower as their DPS was a bit lower. So, we're heading to our final map, Hollywood. First time today we're seeing all 5 of our games. First time today we're seeing Hollywood, and it's back to being a hybrid.
The problem here is you can't really run Bastion to the same effectiveness as Lahti Menace did on Route 66.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of wonder going into this, just speculating, how much of that successful push they had where they got almost 3 points, how much of that relied on them using the Bastion against tanks, and if they can't use that here, will they still be able to make the same distance?
Oh, we'll have to wait and see as they are on the map assembling their heroes to begin with. We'll, of course, probably know what Nemesis is going to pick. They're going to go with a Reinhardt and a Zarya and a Roadhog and a D.Va and then a Moira and a Lucio. It's just a weird guess of mine, but for some reason, my head says that's what their opening comp's at least going to look like. They might have a Hanzo to start things out with a quick Sonic and then switch it back to Roadhog. But, you know, that's just a random guess.
complete shot in the dark.
Yeah,
with that
complete
one.
prediction using nothing but my psychic abilities.
Yep.
And general feeling the aura of the room. That's what I'm going with.
One thing I think that happened a lot on Route 66 that we maybe didn't pay a lot of attention to because there was so much going on across is Kuhia kept getting just big slam after big slam out. And they weren't always like the 6-man or the 5-man or, you know, your Reddit clips, but consistently getting 2 or 3 people with Earth Shatter is something we don't see a lot. Obviously a little bit easier now with more tanks, but he definitely seems to be dominating Zeppeli. Not massively, Zeppeli still making plays, but Zeppeli also traditionally more a Winston player than a Reinhardt player, and the difference is showing here a bit.
All right, here they come then. Lahti Menace pushing out of their spawn as the attacking team first up. Damage being blown forward as they now make their way up to the archway. Hooks going through but not landing on anyone too significant. The damage is starting to unload now then, and a lot of Nemesis players low. Kuhio dead straight away. Ice now the next focus, and she's going to get demech'd. Finished off quickly afterwards. Now Kavarachu's low, but he's going to be picked off after Ice. They lose their Lucio as Ice goes down as well. The Roadhog is staying alive as long as he can, but ultimately he will fall. Lahti Menace yet to lose anyone, but they've steamrolled over that first point.
Yeah, convincing start there for sure, and that's exactly what you want going into this deciding map. Both teams playing to stay in the tournament, playing to return for day 2, and obviously shot at some of that prize money. Exactly how you want to start, and they're pushing forward a little bit here, playing quite aggressively and leaving Danny back to move the cart forward.
Kavarachu then coming around behind. They help out, take out Desperado. Here comes the cart now as the pressure continues from Team Nemesis, actually bringing Tracer. This is a different one from them, which is nice to see, but will it work out? They are continuing the pressure up before the payload even really moves very far. Graviton Ball comes out, doesn't do a whole lot, but that does! Desperado! Big ultimate, cleans out Nemesis. Cavarescu, the only man standing, and is not much that Tracer's going to do alone.
Yeah, Graviton from the front, Earth Shatter from the back, and a Pulse Bomb from the side. That will normally guarantee you quite a few kills, and we saw it exactly there. Obviously, did require a lot of investment, and they now only really have Danny's sound barrier and the whole hog to work with. But it will allow them to work forward, but we're going to see this big clash of tanks. Early sound barrier there. Early
sound barrier from Nemesis as they push on forward. The sound barrier from Daniel not being used, actually. Looks like Nemesis happy to just get cleaned up here and save those ultimates for their next fight. Desperado's charging his up. Yvestas, Zarya charging his up. Zelepi up to 50%. They're going to have them ready for the next one, but they will be temporarily on hold as Lahti Menace get cleaned.
Yeah, and you saw what happened there, and the difference being, obviously, the lower investment from Nemesis in terms of the ultimates they used to win that fight compared to how many Lahti Menace used to win the fight prior to that.
Graviton Ball comes out onto all 6 of them here. There's an ult coming in from Cavarescu's Tracer in the middle of it, but it doesn't go bang for much damage because there was a good Lucio ult to heal them all up. Lahti Menace losing 2 now as their Reinhardt and Lucio falls down. Virtus uses his ultimate, but Menace getting the kills this time around. Desperado still has his ult. Farmer still has his ult, but they've held Lahti Menace back towards their spawn again. The payload's not getting moved much further forward at all.
Yeah, they're right at the door here. Kuhia again hitting a huge slam. Slightly mistimed it with the D.Va. Wasn't able to get the combo off the self-destruct, but still, now we have Zepeli coming really aggressively off the back of that coalescence, and they're just pushing them back and they take down Olu.
They take Olu out with a good coalesce and they're continuing the push, but here's the flank behind from Tracer doing what she can to Zarya and to Moira. The Moira ult comes out from your position though, is keeping the healing going as best they can, but Lahti Menace will lose their tank as Ice gets demeched. Virtus will finish Lucio off straight away afterwards. They're going to continue to push forward, but with 3 minutes to go, they've still got a long way to get to the next point as Nemesis do get wiped out. Lahti Menace can start to make some progress with the payload.
Yeah, they've got a fairly good set of ultimates coming up on line as well. You look at the sound barrier for Graviton and the coalescence, so a good opportunity to finish second point here, and they'll be happy with that finish here. I think they just have to be careful. Self-destruct and pulse ball on line shortly for Nemesis.
Around the back once again comes Desperado's Tracer. Cavarescu takes down Zelepi really quickly. That's the tank for Lahti Menace out of the picture. He hasn't even used his smash. Ice uses her ultimate self-destruct and pick off 2 as well. Zarya finally gets 1 in return, taking down Nemesis' Lucio, but Nemesis have put Lahti Menace into full retreat already. They are going to have to run right back to spawn again. Tracer is keeping that pressure up with D.Va in return. Nemesis this time not being quite as aggressive with their push forward towards their spawn. They don't want to leave that much space between them and the payload this time.
Yeah, exactly, and that was huge. Not only did they win the fight, but they allowed the rest of their team to catch up in ultimate economy, so we're going to see a much more equal showdown of ultimates here. And Kuhia's going super aggressive, but he gets
Graviton goes in, pulls them tight. Lucio's down, as is Reinhardt very quickly. Ice is demeched as well and she'll be picked off shortly afterwards, but Virtus picks off 4 very quickly as the Roadhog ultimate goes out, cleaning up Team Nemesis. Nemesis still have 4 ultimates when they come back up, but Lahti Menace are going to be much closer to the checkpoint when that happens.
Yeah, they do have the Earth Shatter and Sound Barrier as well, so it's going to be a big showdown again, but the executions have been really clean so far from Lahti Menace on this attack. And here comes the last desperate stall.
Oh, smash was hidden around the corner, comes out, doesn't hit too many people. Well, that's a great smash down from Kuhiho, and he picks off 2 very quickly after landing. Lucio has fallen for Nemesis. Ice's mech has been popped and she will fall soon after. There goes the Lucio for Lahti Menace as Nemesis chases it down. Quick heal up for that Tracer. Nemesis now have the point back and have the payload into their control. There's a minute on the clock and only Desperado has ult here for Lahti Menace as they slowly begin to push back towards the payload.
Yeah, they do have both support ultimates coming online defensively as well, so that's going to be big for them. Only a minute is not a lot of time. When you consider at one point they had, what, like 3.5, 4 minutes for this second point, and they really have struggled to get it all the way. They are just 1 fight away, though, and that'll be huge again in this deciding map, but they need to get through both these support ultimates first.
Here comes the Moira ultimate. Vav is killed very, very quickly by the ult from Tracer. Lahti Menace losing their tank, but they did take out the Lucio in return. Quick core kills coming through from Nemesis as 3 members of Lahti Menace are dead again. The push is going to continue as Lahti Menace cannot stay anywhere near that payload with only 3 players left alive. Desperado falling back, just about stays alive as the pressure from the enemy Tracer can't quite finish her off. But again, 13 seconds to go. Ultimates in favor of Team Nemesis. Lahti Menace have to pull off something special here.
Yeah, they've shot themselves in the foot here by killing Vavev so quickly because now he has the sound barrier for this next fight. But they do have stuff to work with. Earth Shatter from Zeppeli needs to be big. Doesn't get anything though, actually gets Earth Shattered first, and now they're pushing forward. This is disastrous.
The Earth Shatter in return is big, but the ult comes out from Vavev as the overtime point is now being contested. The big ult comes out from Desperado, taking down 2. Vavev and the Reinhardt are gone. Now Team Nemesis still with 2 players down and picked up 4, 5, 6 almost kills. The Reinhardt is respawning from earlier, and there it is. A good hold for Team Nemesis.
That was so unfortunate. I feel bad for Desperado because he makes the play. He knows the supports both have their ultimates, so he takes one of them out of the game with a pulse bomb. Unfortunately, his team then lose the fight, which means Vavev is now with the sound barrier for the next one.
Yeah.
And then obviously Kuhia gets the better of the Earth Shatter duel, not for the first time. And it all just stops there. And I mean, it's not the end by any stretch. It's almost 2 points, still something to work with. But you feel like particularly the first point hold's got to be fairly good here.
Yeah, it's got to burn a lot of the time down. What we did see well from Nemesis there, we had 2 more fights pinning Team Lahti Menace in the spawn and keeping that payload in its original position for quite a while. But they've got to make sure that their mark can be made before that happens, now that they're on the opposite side.
It looks like we're going to see Reaper again defensively from Desperado. Same thing we saw on Route 66.
Interesting.
Worked fairly well for them there.
It did. So we'll see whether or not he make it happen again. There's definitely some more opportunities for high ground drop down Death Blossom plays here. He was easily spotted every time he tried to make those plays on Route 66, but that might not be the case here. We'll watch and see how it unfolds as the preparation does begin to take its final form. Does look like finally Nemesis are willing to let that permanent change in their roster of Tracer stick it out over the Roadhog for Kavarascu.
Yeah, Kavarascu finally been allowed out of Junkrat jail and is allowed to play hit scan heroes again. And if he's playing against this Reaper and heavy tank composition, he should have quite a lot of room to flank. No one's really going to be able to contest him directly. They're more just going to try and tank through anything he can do. But it certainly gives him room to work with, and there's a lot of options for him going into this first point.
So, here they go as the push forward comes on out. Versus doing what he can to spam damage into the ball coming his way. It's tough when Kuhiha just drops like that. Vav will then quickly follow, and Lahti Menace are going to be comfortable holding that first point after pushing that first point, picking up those 3 kills. They took down Olu as well. They're pushing around behind as best they can, but Tracer goes back to spawn, and will hero swap to McCree at Verascu. Interesting.
I presume they're going to try and maybe set up a speed boost on Flashbang to try and win the shield war against Zeppeli. And they're also actually going to force Desperado back here, but they're just bashing heads here, both of the tanks.
So the push goes forward, the Moira ult goes off directly onto the point. Now he's ticking through, but Kuhiha is there again. And once more, the push from Nemesis, or the pressure from Nemesis, is heavily negated. And they are pushed back towards the spawn to await the respawn of their teammate.
Yeah, Kuhia's died a couple of times early now. Desperado really given that early edge, but Zeppeli went down that last fight, and now finally.
And it's a big one too as they bring them all into the point. Reaper standing on top of them, doing what he can to cut them all down. He does go and go deep onto the McCree, but doesn't actually get the kill at all. He will fall down to Ollie. Desperado, the only dead player on his team, but also the closest to his ultimate, so not wonderful for Lahti Menace, but as they are being picked off by a couple more players now, they're keeping their pressure up onto the point and actually starting to contest the third quite convincingly. Up onto the high ground goes Lucio. Will come down again in a moment, no doubt. Maybe try and delay the control, maybe just wait till it's safe.
There we go. So about 2 minutes they took off there. Good, but not great. So now they've got 4 minutes 20 seconds, and they can't give up control of second here. And we do see the switch, Kavarascu going off McCree back onto Trace, and that he originally started on. Desperado on 76 here as well defensively, set up on this high ground.
So we'll see how that fares as the door opens and the payload comes through. Roadhog exposed around the back. Tracer going around to do what she can to ultimately just charge her ultimate on him. Ult comes out from the enemy Tracer, does serious damage to, enemy Reinhardt, does serious damage to that Reinhardt. As the pressure continues from Carrasco's Tracer, only to be picked off by the enemy Moira. Lahti Menace now doing what Nemesis did in return, pinning them in towards the spawn and keeping them back and away from the payload for an early time. 3.5 minutes to go, and they need to hold firm.
Yeah, they have plenty of time to work with it. They might try and just force out ultimates from Lahti Menace. That would be the safe option. Guhia's going to get an aggressive charge and now walks in with the shatter, but doesn't grab anyone with it, Pankey.
Doesn't at all, but the damage is coming out from the Moira ult, plus the healing. Zilepi will fall early on. There's a great Graviton with a traded Tracer ultimate and a D.Va ultimate, but in favor of Team Nemesis. So their push is going to get stronger with all of those kills. Meanwhile, a lot of ultimates were actually used from Lahti Menace to fight it in return of it. So despite how much Nemesis used, they're actually not too uneven on footing. Zilepi and Farmus will have theirs ult when Lahti Menace come back, but those aren't as big of a deal as they may seem when you say you have 2 ultimates left up.
Yeah, Nemesis just used their ultimates later and put them in a great position, and now the Coalescence comes out. Only one, actually.
Only one support down, and a 2-2 trade for kills on both sides at the moment, but this Desperado that's gone for Lahti Menace only supports for Nemesis. They do get Kuhiha before he gets his shatter off again, though, so that's the tank out of the picture, but there's a return tank as Lahti Menace lose their Reinhardt. They have pushed Nemesis back and away from the point at the moment, but we've still got a couple of players dancing around on the payload to keep it in that same position as long as they can. Ice was the last one to die. She's now going to have to revive, and then Nemesis can push back forward with Olu and Carrasco's ults combined again. If we can get a good Graviton out from Nemesis here, they maybe have to push this past where Lahti Menace finished.
Yeah, no support ultimates available defensively either. They do nearly have a Graviton, so they need the Solar to go just as big here as both tanks go aggressive. Huge shatter!
The huge shatter comes out. Zilepi's going to get pushed off to one side. The Graviton comes in, but it only lands on Daniel, but they do kill him off all the same. Now they kill Zilepi. Farmus has fallen as well. Carrasco's going deep. Ice is going to be D-mexed. Desperado's finished off from behind. Lahti Menace still have 3 ults alive, but everybody's dead.
They're going to get one final fight from this. Maybe it's going to be a desperate stall. Someone maybe needs to touch the cart to make space, but they're all on tanks. They're not that quick. They're going to use the Coalescence preemptively to try and come through. Zapelli gets stunned.
They are coming out through the only doorway possible, but it's not enough. Team Nemesis get it on point and take the series 3 rounds to 2.
What a finish there. It looked, it was that forward hold was so crucial at the end because it looked like Lahti Menace had the opportunity. Like you said, they had those 3 ultimates coming into that defense. They could have turned that final fight, and it maybe wouldn't have won them the map, but it would have gotten them a hell of a lot closer.
Again, yep.
As we've seen as replay here.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great ult with then follow-up straight hit scan damage for that Tracer to make it count. Team Nemesis then obviously elated. They are coming back to fight and live another day tomorrow. It's gonna sting, but Lahti Menace going home with nothing tonight. However, they put up a great fight. We had a good game, our first actual 5-map game for the day of the last one, and in their first game, Lahti Menace against Gigantti, also not something to be sniffed at. They had some moments there which they can really look back on and be proud of.
Yeah, as we see the handshakes come in, like you said, unfortunate for Lahti Menace that they will have to go home. Well, they don't have to literally go home, they can stay. And Nemesis set themselves up with potentially a rematch, or even against...
yeah, of course, tomorrow opening game is going to be ENCE versus Gigantti, the loser of which will then go on to play Nemesis now. So it could be a rematch with ENCE if they want to, and they've definitely got an idea of how to do that differently going forward. They played their similar comps here with a small change or two with that Carrasco Tracer coming in, which made a big difference. Maybe they can do that against ENCE, and that will do the difference there. Or if Gigantti lose to ENCE, they'll be playing a completely different roster in Gigantti as well. So they've got a lot to think about tonight as they go back and look back on today's games, but there's a lot of learning points to be seen all the same, and I'm excited to see how they come out the gate tomorrow. As for us coming out the gate, as I said, ENCE versus Gigantti, that is a huge game to start things off.
Yeah, the 2 favourites coming into the tournament, both won their opening games, somewhat unsurprisingly, both did it convincingly.
Yep.
Gigantti probably in the better form right now.
On the same maps, too.
On the same maps as well, yeah, pretty much going blow for blow. Will be interesting to see, because obviously they've both now seen that each other has won those 3 maps in fairly convincing fashion. How do they treat those maps going into tomorrow's veto?
Yeah.
A lot of questions. And
now, you said this earlier on, maybe they picked those control point maps earlier on just to steamroll over these underdog teams.
Yeah.
Are they going to do the same thing against their equal opponents, against the other favorites? Or is it better to go with the slower maps, the hybrid maps or the payload maps, because that gives you more opportunity for fights and to outskill and outclass your opponents, or better perhaps economy management with their ultimates? Interesting to see and what they might choose to do with those big bans, and we'll find those out in the morning.
If I had to say, I'd probably say Gigantti would lean towards the control just because they've got Davin, and Davin is, out of all
really
the players here, yeah, he is the guy. He is the guy who is probably a little bit hard done by to be the only member of the old Gigantti, the contenders winning roster, not to be on an Overwatch League team. He's definitely of the standard, and he's certainly flexed here in his first game, and I expect we're going to see a lot more of him.
Yeah.
And just reminding everybody who's maybe not seen him play in a while now, he's still definitely just as good as you remember.
Really good, guys. Not been letting it slip. Keep an eye on me. I'll make myself into the Overwatch League soon.
Yeah.
Just watch, yeah. He had a couple of big moments in their games early on today. I saw some of the fans in the community were big fans of watching him play and how good he can be, and hopefully he can keep that up for tomorrow. There are a couple of big moments, of course, though, from that third and final that wrapped up with the big damage from what was ultimately the play of the game from the Reinhardt, ultimately in that game. He swinging his hammer around. Yeah,
he did the most work, obviously. He was crucial.
He was pivotal on that point, yeah. But hey, it's there, and it's moments like that which really do get you going and get the team pumped up to hold those points and keep those things in play. But it also can crush your opposition to we all got caught in that ultimate.
Yeah.
We should have been positioned better, we should have been spread out, and it's things like that that I don't expect to see from teams like Gigantti and ENCE tomorrow. They should be more spread, they should be more coordinated, not getting themselves caught in as many 6-man ultimates.
Yeah, we certainly saw this game swing back and forth multiple times. Both teams did seem fairly evenly matched. I think one of the biggest takeaways that at least I'm taking from some of these opening games is not just how close it was, but also the individuals, or some of these young Finnish players, like we talk about Virtus, obviously somewhat limited in the heroes he played, mainly Roadhog and Junkrat, but you saw the sort of stuff he did. Guys only, I think, like 15, 16. Yeah. You know, this is the sort of next generation. We've seen the original Gigantti roster that came from the Ninjas in Pyjamas roster. We've seen them come in, go on to Overwatch League, Taimu as well in that sort of opening generation, and this is the next generation of Finnish Overwatch here. Yep,
I'm going to keep a close eye on that too. So as you may have seen and heard on the screen behind us, that is our Finnish interview wrapping up, and in case you can't remember, we're now going to go over to a short English interview with our host and players already with the winning team captain of their last game before wrapping things up for a final goodbye and then coming back tomorrow. So ultimately, we're coming to the end of us two here for today, so thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to come back tomorrow at an earlier time. It's going to be a nice, I think it's 11 a.m. for us, so it's a 9 a.m. start. No, it's 11 a.m. CET.
Which is 10 GMT.
Something like that. There we go. There's our timings for tomorrow. It's, there. So nice and early, 10 CET, 9 a.m. GMT. 11 for us tomorrow, earlier start than today, so if you want to watch those games from the beginning, don't forget to come here earlier than that. And there is our interview. So guys, thank you very much for being here. Come on, UnderX, thank you very much for being here with me today. We'll go over and finish off with our interview for this afternoon and see you guys tomorrow.
And we're back here with Karva Rausko. Actually, it's Harry Ray. If you go, well, Manta Ray and it's Harry, well, you get the idea. So, Team Nemesis, you just won against FC Lahti Menace 3-2, and it was a really
tight. Team Menace has really talented players like Desperado, Xippeli, for example. Farmas is really good as super player, and it was really tight game. Everyone played so well, and actually the most troubling hero for us was the enemy Tracer, and we had to do something to it. And then in the last game, I just picked my own Tracer, and we got it. It was clutch. It was all a clutch moment until the end.
Fight fire with fire. That's great. So tomorrow you might either face against ENCE once again or Team Gigantti. Which one would you prefer?
Probably Team Gigantti, because they are a big name. If we manage to fight against them, even get some maps, it's just gonna boost our reputation. And it doesn't really mind if we got ENCE, because we believe we have learned something team from today, and we might be able to do it tomorrow.
I like this David and Goliath idea. Just find the biggest, meanest guy in the cell block and just beat the shit, beat the living whatever out of him. So, any last words for today's stream?
Not until the end. Always remember to have fun. Having to have fun with your team and focus in the game. It's all that matters. It's just such a great moment to have with the team.
That's great. Thank you once again, and congratulations on going to the last round. And we will be returning tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern European time. Then we'll start with the match, most likely anticipated match between Team Ense and Team Gigantti here on this stage. We'll see you tomorrow.